Welcome back, everybody, to We're Live, Pal. I'm Double G here, hanging out with Andrew Zarian. And Andrew, before we get to all the stuff that we're going to talk about today, the F4W Convention in Las Vegas, we're starting to promote it a little bit. And you and I both have been to the event. The one that you went to, you did have to leave a little bit early, so you didn't get to hang out for the entire time. But any interest on your end into going to Las Vegas this year?
Well, I'll tell you this while I fix my headphones here. Sorry. I had a blast. It was so much fun going 2 years ago with you guys. Everybody there is so awesome. Everybody's so nice, and everybody had a great time. It was just a total amazing trip. I can't go because I got a lot of work obligations here. However, I don't know if you know the news, but I'm going to be traveling to Las Vegas a little bit more often now.
Oh, wow. You're going to have your own.
I'm going on Friday. Yeah, I'm going on Friday. I'm in Vegas on Friday. So it is possible. My answer was going to be no, I'm not joining anybody this year because I'm not going to Vegas, but it is very possible that I may be going this year. So.
Oh, wow. Because of work around the same time.
Around the same time. Yeah.
Interesting. There's going to be a couple of, I guess, one specific change this year in the convention. The Q&A and meet and greet is not going to be Brian and Dave this year because Dave has a family obligation that weekend. It is instead going to be Brian and Vinny. And if you remember when we had Vinny on, I had him kind of discuss the origin story of the actual convention. And the actual convention was Ed in San Antonio and Brian and Vinny, along with others who were out there. So this is kind of a little bit of a throwback to the original convention by having Brian and Vinny at the center of the meet and greet and the Q&A, so that should be a ton of fun. I mean, if you enjoy the Brian and Vinny show, you know, you're going to get that in real life, in live and in person, which is a very different dynamic than the Brian and Dave Wrestling Observer Radio show. So if you are a fan of those guys, this is a unique opportunity because I'm assuming that the future ones will be Brian and Dave as long as Dave is able to go. But because he cannot, Vinny steps in, and I think it creates a much different dynamic, very fun dynamic. Also, the all-you-can-eat dinner at Texas de Brazil. You did make that one, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
Yes, we did make. You did make that
fantastic.
one. Then there's a pro wrestling show. Ed in San Antonio, Poder Seis. So the 6th show that Ed has actually promoted. That is crazy. There will be a sweet party, and my favorite part of last year, as far as the events were concerned, was the annual brunch at the Wicked Spoon. I just didn't usually do that one, but last year when my wife came, I was like, you know what, let's do the brunch, and that was absolutely fantastic. So all of those things are part of the weekend, and you can buy tickets already. The link is up. It is a link to Eventbrite, but we'll put the whole post that's on the website right now into our show notes. But you can also just go to F4W online and you can find the convention post if you are interested in joining. Like I said, I think I'll probably go. I'm not. Only reason I'm not 100% sure is just because I have to figure out, you know, where I'm going to stay and how long I'm going to be there. And I don't think my wife is going this year. It's always around my birthday. So there's stuff that I have to kind of figure out, but I love going. Vegas is a lot different than it was when we first started doing this in the late 2000s, early 2010s. But it is still a blast. So if you can make it, I would say go for it. And if I'm pretty sure I'm going to be there. So I will completely be happy to meet up with anybody who is a fan of this show, who listens to me on Wrestling Observer Radio, listens to the Fight Game Podcast, all that. So tons of fun. All right, now let's talk about what we were going to start with before I remembered that we had to plug the convention. Big business, Andrew. I feel like
yes, sir.
You have been at the center of big business since before it was even big business. Lots of tweets coming your way.
No, man, what do you know? What do you know? You don't, were you there? Did you see the paper get signed? Were you there? I can't wait till all these bozos. And then you know what? You know what it's going to be? They're going to write, who cares?
Yeah.
Heh, meh, who cares? That's going to be their answer. Same bozos that said it's not happening. Same people. Sorry, I'm a little aggressive about this.
No, I mean, if you know, if anybody who's kind of been out there on this story, it has been you. And I can imagine you even mentioned on this show when it first started happening, you're like, yeah, that the Sasha fan base, the Mercedes fan base, very, very passionate, fan base there.
Yeah. I could say a lot more. I definitely can. I'm choosing not to. But yeah, it was always happening. I was always told soon because they didn't really have a set date when I initially heard. And then the date has always been this. It's been the 13th for months. They picked the venue. They have a plan. I've been told that they have a really good plan for her. And we could already see that some of the pieces are happening, right? People are taking shots at her.
Mm-hmm.
Serena would be a fantastic first opponent.
Would you do that match on TV, or would you save that for the Dynasty show?
I don't know. I think you can save it, and I think it would be a good showing for Serena. This is such a different person from who was in WWE, and she never got to show this, and obviously she got hurt, and she had to go away for a little bit, but I think it would be a very good first opponent for her. Also, you have Shida there, which is a fantastic opponent for her.
Yeah.
You have Tony Stark. I mean, the list it goes on and on. I'm just very curious at the presentation. Who do we get?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of Mercedes do we get tomorrow? That's the question everybody should be asking.
Now, I don't know who's hurt, who's healthy, who they're saving, who is just unable to wrestle. I think her first two opponents, if you want to make a big splash, and you're not putting her quite yet in the title picture, because I think Toni Storm, if she is still the champion by, whenever you want to do so. But essentially, I think if you have Mercedes on the show, you are guaranteed to have one women's match that's big promoted. Now, if you have the title on somebody else, then that's a second match. And that's what I would like to see. Like, Mercedes can definitely just go in and win the title on day one. But then I worry that, then you only, if you don't have great programs for some of the other women, then maybe you're only getting, like the last pay-per-view. You only had one women's match on the actual pay-per-view event. So I would like to see Mercedes have some, maybe create some grudge matches for her before going after the title. And the first one that I would do, I think most people would say that this is kind of an easy one, which is Britt Baker, but we also have not seen Britt Baker. We saw Britt Baker on Twitter doing some, I think she was singing at somebody's concert on stage. We've seen her with Mercedes and Sasha and Bianca and maybe Naomi, I think, at the Super Bowl. They were all together. So she's out there. I don't know if she is available or not, but that would be, I think, an intriguing first opponent. And, the wrestling is what the wrestling is, but Britt Baker is one of the bigger stars in AEW when it comes to the crowd reaction and such. And I think she would get a big response in her comeback if she's Mercedes' first big opponent.
I don't know what Britt's status is, but I do want to say this. I do hope that forget about the fans, right? Because there's going to be criticism from every side for every reason. But as far as the talent goes, you don't get too many opportunities to get a big star, one of the top stars in your field, to show up. I mean, Sasha Banks is probably in the top 10 most important women for this modern era of wrestling. I mean, arguably, you could put her wherever. You could put her number 2. You could put her number 1. It doesn't matter. She's in that top ranking.
Mm-hmm.
Instrumental in that women's evolution or whatever they called it. Stephanie McMahon called it. Instrumental.
Lance would like us to call it a revolution, by the way.
A revolution. Okay.
Yeah, he thinks that's
women's
the wrong
revolution.
Term. Yeah.
However, she also is a perfect example of what the developmental system in WWE could do for women's wrestling, and it did. We talk about this regularly, right? Like, give me the top guys that came out of NXT without any kind of pre-existing, New Japan world title reign or a Ring of Honor situation. Name those guys, because there's not too many of them that are on the top level. Name the women's side. It's all of them. Everybody. The top women in NXT that were virtually unknown have become top women in the main roster. It's a little bit different, right? Men's wrestling is way differently than women's wrestling. Fortunately, unfortunately, however you see it. But this is an opportunity for that entire women's locker room in that company to become something much more than it is right now. Not that it's bad, but you have one of the pioneers of this modern era on your roster, willing to work with you and educate you and propel you in a main event position. You don't get that opportunity, and I hope everybody realizes, men, women, it doesn't matter. The whole company realizes that this could be very important for them. I'm not saying it will be. I'm saying it could be. I don't know. I don't know if the audience is going to reject it or the work quality is going to be, 5 stars every time. I just hope that people realize that this is another one of those opportunities like they'd had with Punk, and they need to capitalize on it.
Mm-hmm. I think, the wrestling, like even though we know wrestling isn't a true sport in the sense of, wins and losses not being predetermined and such, but it is still competitive. But like you said, Mercedes is going to be a very knowledgeable person for whomever is working with the women's with the women talent and the men's talent as well, because she comes from a place where presentation is a big part of the act. And I think a lot of people could use help with that stuff, right? Like, presentation is not everything. And in AEW, maybe it's even less than it is in WWE. But she's going to have knowledge of that. She's going to have knowledge of the bad stuff that she didn't like about WWE as well, right? This worked for WWE, but this didn't really work, and they still do it. And I'm not exactly sure why. I think she could be helpful there. But ultimately, what should happen in situations like this is you bring in somebody who's, maybe a level up higher than some of the younger wrestlers. And I like a lot of the younger talent. We've seen the Queen Aminata. We've seen Trish Adora. I hope both of those women get signed and become All Elite. I think they have lots of, they are really good prospects for a growing women's division. But everyone should sort of have to step their game up when you bring in somebody like Mercedes. Jamie Hayter, it would be my second opponent for Mercedes, and maybe you do that one at Wembley. But again, we don't know what's going on with Jamie Hayter. She had the injury, but she was awesome, and she was becoming one of the best women in all of wrestling.
Hey, and it happened twice. It happened twice, didn't it? It happened with Statlander, because Statlander got so over,
and she messed up her knee.
And she messed up her knee. Long Island's own Chris Statlander. Gotta give a big ups to Long Island. And Jamie got hurt. And both of those women, and it almost came out of nowhere, right? Like, the crowd saw something, they ran with it, and then the at-home audience continued. And which is exactly the way you want to kind of get over with this stuff. Unfortunate, she got hurt. Both of them got hurt. So maybe this is the reset for both of them. They come back, and now they have a tremendous, tremendous opponent to go up against. And everybody's looking to prove something, including Mercedes.
And hopefully what happens is the women's division grows and it gets better and it attracts other good wrestlers. We saw Jordan Grace at the Royal Rumble, and I was like, man, you could drop her in to Monday Night Raw tomorrow and she'd be really good. So you just open up more opportunities in the business once you kind of level up your game. And maybe, this isn't really, I'm not discrediting Tony, but I think, what a lot of people would have thought is that because of his style and because of how different AEW is from WWE, that the women's division would have grown a lot faster than it has because he brings in women from Japan. Thunder Rosa was given a shot, and the Sheik got hurt too. That was another one that we didn't mention. So I think this is a great opportunity for the entire division to kind of raise up a level, and it's going to be great for the product. You lose a Jade Cargill and you gain a Mercedes Moné. I think that's a really good trade. It works out for both companies. WWE, we'll see with Jade. They still have not really done much with her yet. I'm assuming it's coming at WrestleMania at some point, but you send over the prospect and you kind of get the all-star, and it wasn't actually a trade, but it works out well like that. And I want to see Mercedes. I've been waiting for her. I thought right before she left WWE, I was like, man, this woman is really, really got it. She's really, she was one of the few pandemic stars, right? Her and Bayley when they were together. Like, we were watching that terrible, terrible pandemic stuff, and she and Bayley kind of leveled up during that time frame. So we know she's got the chops.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I want to see what happens tomorrow.
All right, what else is on this show? I'm going to give a little bit of a rundown, and you give me your thumbs up or thumbs down, or how interested you are in these matches. And we'll start with the FTW champion Hook. And now he's just Lionheart Chris Jericho now. Like, that's who he is.
Yeah, he's
now.
back. We're back. 1996, baby. Yeah.
And Chris Jericho against the Gates of Agony. What is your interest level here?
I mean, is Chris going to turn on him and challenge him for the FTW title? Do we get the Painmaker that comes back and challenges for the FTW title?
I don't know. Chris is in this weird crossroads with his career, right? Like, he doesn't. Yeah. I know the Kenny Omega thing happened, and that probably took him away from a big program when it was him and Kenny Omega together. And now he's just finding stuff to do. He's been wrestling the CMLL luchadors who are coming in, and now he's with Hook, and it seems like maybe Hook replaces Kenny Omega, and maybe they do become like this really, really good tag team and in that upper echelon. And we'll see what happens when it comes to this tag tournament. But you know what? Even more than Hook and Jericho, I really like the Gates of Agony. I wish that they would do a little bit more with them. They're pretty much they've been given a specific level of where they are, but they're unique and they're different. I think they're impressive. I would just like to see them do more with the Gates of Agony.
Yeah, I think that Ring of Honor situation is a little confusing for everybody, and I think that's why some of these guys, you don't see them too often. You see them sometimes, you see them in the squash match, but really they're not a prime focus. I don't know. It's too many moving parts, right, at the same time, and some people get lost. But I do like them. I do like Gates of Agony.
We'll talk about these moving parts here when we get to Okada, because that's the one that's confusing to me. All right, Willow Nightingale with Stoke, my guy Stoke, against Riho. What is your interest level here?
I like Riho. I want to see, this is a nice test for Willow for this match. And Willow's very liked. I don't know what the work quality is going to be, but I think it'll be fine. It's another display for both of them to be on a big show. And that's what you want. You want to display your talent and what they could do. And I think everybody should take that opportunity with tomorrow's show.
Riho is an amazing babyface. I do wonder if Willow shows some heel shenanigans a little bit here. Because otherwise, it's just like two lovable baby faces.
And she's so lovable. Like, what a great smile, like a likable face. Like, you see Willow, and you're like, I don't want to dislike you.
No, I don't want to. I like her. Darby Allin, Jay White. This is interesting because they're basically telling us that Darby Allin is going away. So I don't know if you necessarily need the babyface beatdown to give him a reason to go away. We already know he's going away. He says that he's going away. So the booking here is going to be pretty interesting. I would imagine Jay White wins, but I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to do what we would normally think that they would do in a match like this, where the guy's going away, because they've already told us. But you know what's really weird about this? So you would think, okay, coming off of the Sting retirement, who actually can gain from that moment, right? Sting is gone. The Bucks are heels. Darby seems like he should be the one gaining from that moment. And then it's like, oh, nope, I'm just leaving too. So it's like we both retired, but
well, it looks like the Bucks are gaining from it, right? The Bucks are definitely gaining from it because this is for the last 2 years, they've taken a back seat. At least the last 18 months, they've really taken a back seat to everything else that's happening. Obviously, the CM Punk stuff didn't help and a bunch of other things, but now they seem like they're the ones that are front and center after the Sting stuff.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because they were obviously you would imagine that Darby would be the one.
Well, they did get Okada, right?
They did get Okada.
They did get Okada on their side. So that is the benefit of having Okada is the benefit of that is having Okada. I'm messing with my lights here. Sorry.
Oh, what happened? Where are you? Where do we go?
So yeah, the Bucks, but it's not like the Bucks kind of really needed the kick in the butt, but theirs is all sort of directionally, creatively, not about necessarily wins and losses. I just thought, Darby and Sting win this match, and maybe you propel him to a much higher level. But he is also leaving at the same time. So, all right, now we got the Elite, the Bucks and Okada against Eddie Kingston, Penta, and Pac. Now we'll use this as a little bit of a transition to also talk about Okada's debut or re-debut as a member of the AEW roster. He showed up last week unannounced, though it did do the best quarter of the entire show on Dynamite at the top of the hour. And he showed up to, if anybody thought that he was saving Eddie Kingston, I hope not. I hope people don't actually think that, because it was pretty telegraphed that he was going to come in and beat up poor Eddie Kingston, who got beat up 3 and 4 on 1, 2 shows in a row. It sucked for him. And so Okada comes out, he's with the Bucks, and my question to you is, if Eddie Kingston and Okada is our next feud, does Okada care about this Triple Crown belt? Like, what is his reasoning for wanting to win this title?
I mean, I would imagine he should win, right? I mean, one of the most dominant professional wrestlers of all time, arguably. I would say he should win. He should win that title. He shouldn't lose to Eddie. If there was anybody that, you would think like, well, of course Eddie lost, it's Okada, that would be the moment. And also there is a New Japan connection, right, with that title.
New Japan strong connection, not New Japan IWGP connection.
Okay, so if Okada wins that belt, right, he's also the Ring of Honor champion.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Does that go in the lineage of the title? It does.
I think so.
I mean, what a great way to get a TV deal, Tony. Put that title on Okada and be like, look who we have. Look who's our world champion. It's Okada.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can sell ROH television in Japan as well.
Maybe you could sell ROH television in Japan. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to see him with that title. Come out with all of them.
So I kind of debated this on the Fight Game podcast with John the Rock. I think we were both a little negative on it, but after talking to Dave on Saturday night, if this title on Okada becomes like a top level title, like maybe just underneath the AEW world title, and Okada elevates this thing, then I think it's actually really useful. I'll still have the issue of why Okada would want this belt because of the New Japan Strong affiliation. Like he's above that affiliation, but at the same time, if it is now on AEW television, and if you can elevate this belt and like Okada becomes like the Gunther champion where he doesn't lose like ever, and he just holds it for like a year and a half, and then by the time he does finally lose that belt, I think it's in a much better place. With Eddie Kingston's great. He's the worker champion, like he's the fighter. He's backs down from nobody, but still the way that he's booked in AEW, he isn't booked like a top guy. He's booked like an upper mid card guy, even though he did beat Bryan Danielson. So I just think on Okada, this belt does does really, really get elevated. If it's the story that I'm thinking of, and maybe it's not, maybe I'm just thinking too much into this, but yeah, I didn't originally like the affiliation, but now I kind of dig it.
Yeah, maybe it's not, maybe it is. The other thing, we do know that AEW was actively had a secondary world title, and there were going to be plans for it.
Yeah,
Punk had that belt, whatever that belt was going to be called, the real world championship. He had it, and there were some sort of plans.
Yeah,
whether or not it was going to be defended every week or it was going to be unified with MJF, they had something there. And I'm not against elevating that title or the what's the other one? Not the Intercontinental. I want to keep calling it the Intercontinental title. Roddy's belt, not the
international title.
What is it now? The international title. There you go.
You were the one who had the international name.
I did. I know. I had the All Atlantic name and the international name. My brain just stopped. You know what the problem is? Whenever I think international title, guess who shows up in my head? Rick Rude.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the only person I think when I think of international title. You could elevate both of them. You could do something. I love that Okada's there. I just hope it's not a redo of Kenny's heel run.
Mm-hmm.
With it being a little clunky and awkward, because I don't think people wanted to see a heel Kenny at that point as world champion. He had a great run. He did fantastic, but that's not what I wanted. So I don't know. I'm still debating whether or not, I like a heel Okada or not, but he's fantastic. That was the best squash match I've ever seen. He beat those boys up really well.
The Bucks laughing on the apron. I was very entertained. Here's the other reason why the idea of Okada having this Triple Crown title or whatever they call it. If the idea is, we're going to keep it on this dude and we're just going to wait for Kenny Omega to get healthy again. And then when Kenny Omega is healthy again, that's the title he's going after. And we get to see Omega Okada again. Like, I'm in. I'm forward booking again. This may not be the plan. But man, that would be amazing. So I'm 100% in for this version of Okada. I think it's going to be entertaining. I don't know if he's going to make a hill of beans, as far as business is concerned. I don't think ratings are going to be all that helped out or pay-per-views. But for my entertainment value as a wrestling fan of good matches and the way that he can be that grumpy old, the holier than thou character, like nobody's on my level, I think it's great.
Yeah. You know who I want to see him with? Adam Copeland. I want to see Copeland and Okada. I don't know why. You know what I want to call it? The battle of the deceivingly larger than you think men.
I know. Poor Luchasaurus. He's like, dude, I have to now be right next to you of all people?
Yeah.
He's like, people used to think I was a giant. And now you just come in and you're just as big as I am. No, that's a great match, by the way. Fantastic match.
I would love that. I would love to see
By the way, as an aside, are you interested in this Christian and Adam Copeland?
I want it to come to an end. Yeah. I want to have an answer. Whether either Adam wins, which I think he should. I always, they almost did this backwards, right? Shouldn't he have come out? They could have tagged for a little bit, done something, and Christian turns on him, and then you build the feud. Shouldn't they have done it that way?
I mean, this is probably their story, right? My buddy,
this is what they want to do.
My buddy Jeremy Feinstein, who watches this show, he always kind of says, he's like, yeah, we're getting all the stuff that when Adam and Jay were like in high school that they were dreaming up about and writing down as when they finally got to face each other. This is all the stuff that they were going to do. So I would assume that they had a big influence in what we're seeing on the product.
Yeah.
All right, and then we got our main event here: Samoa Joe against Wardlow. I am not into this match at all.
You're not into it
at all. I'm not looking forward to this in any way.
Yeah. It came out of nowhere, really. I mean, we know that he won and that's how they're doing it, but they haven't really done much with Wardlow. I mean, they're trying again. But he had his opportunity after MJF, and it just went nowhere.
So that same convention in Las Vegas that you went to, I think that was MJF and Wardlow, right?
Yeah.
Wardlow was at the highest of peaks of his career, and from that moment until now, it has gone downhill. And now he's in this match again, and I'm just like, he's just another notch in the Samoa Joe title reign. Like I don't even want to see this guy win.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that there's no chance of that, right? But
I would
lead
hope
to something. I hope it's not just like he goes out there and just loses to Joe and that's it. I hope it, helps him get elevated. But he's in the main event of a very important show for them.
Didn't
he
Samoa
has a
Joe
title match?
Didn't Joe cut off his man bun or something the last time? Because they had a feud.
Was it Joe who cut it? Who cut off his man bun?
I just remember they had a feud which was actually pretty good, but it was before Joe became the Joe that he is today. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe versus Wardlow. Let me see when this was. People are posting weird videos, and I'm looking here. And I'm like, oh, here it is. Wardlow defeats Samoa Joe to win the AEW World Title. I'm like, oh no, that's the video game. Somebody made it in the video game.
By the way, did you get your kids the new WWE 2K?
I have to tell you, my son wants it, and I have such a difficult time playing that game. It's too advanced for me at this point. And I just beat Spider-Man.
There you go.
Spider-Man 2, which is a fantastic game. I beat it with my son. So I'm thinking about getting it and just like trying to dedicate like 6 hours into learning how to play that game again.
Here's what you need to do, because I'm on the same page as you. I hadn't played a WWE 2K game since the PS4. And we're talking like Stone Cold Steve Austin's on the cover of this game. So it's been like 8 years or something. And so I did buy it, and I bought it because of the hook of this 40 years of WrestleMania, which that mode is kind of disappointing, but I decided, like, you know what? I haven't played this game in a while. I'm not going to be playing it a ton. MLB The Show's coming out, and that'll be most of the time that I play video games. But I did make my character, and I do want to go through the storylines. I think it's called My Rise or something. So there's 2 storylines. Now the first storyline, if you have a male character, Roman Reigns retires. And he goes to Hollywood. So you need to like be the next guy. Like that's you're attempting to become the next, the next top guy. And on the women's side, you come from the indies and you kind of go through the NXT stuff. So I created my character, and I will attempt to do some of this storyline. But yeah, the 40 years of WrestleMania is what I was interested in the most, and I tried it. And there's like 14 objectives that you're supposed to do in the match, and I pinned Randy Savage as Ricky the Dragon, but I only got through 3 of the 14. So I need to figure out how to do it. But there is a tutorial. It took me about an hour to go through the tutorial and figure out all the moves. It took a lot longer creating my character because it is so meticulous. At some point, I just gave up and I was like, I'm just going to put in the finishers and let's go from here. But yeah, that took a long time. But the tutorial aspect of how to actually play it took like an hour, and it's not that hard. It's actually pretty intuitive. So I would say get the game, and you and your son create the next tag team champions.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that this weekend. He plays Fight Forever all the time.
Interesting.
Because it's so simple. It's so simple. My son's 6. He's not even 7 yet.
It's perfect.
So for him, it's like perfect button mashing, and he plays it and he likes it, so he enjoys it. But I totally understand why people got bored with it. There's no thrills. It's just a very basic. It's exactly what they said they were doing. They were building No Mercy, and that's what they gave you without any of the, video games in the last 25 years have really evolved, and I think that's part of the issue here.
The releases they take too long, though. They barely put Swerve in the game like a couple months ago. Like it just takes too long. Yeah, I actually pulled it off on my machine. So I just donated $70 to the Tony Khan Foundation. Didn't really plan.
Dude, I got it. I gave a copy to Rich. I had an extra copy. I gave him one, and then my kid plays it. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I know people who play it with their kids and they get a kick out of it. So that is a positive to the game. All right, let's talk about a thing that not a lot of people have talked about. I talked a little bit about it with Dave, but I'm always interested when I hear anything marketing related because then I want to talk to you about it. Yeah. So on Friday's SmackDown, Logan Paul and KSI came out and they unveiled that the Prime Hydration logo is now going to be the center ring logo on WWE PLEs. And so I think a lot of people are like, like who cares? Like, the ring has been bare forever. Vince McMahon was against putting any logos in the ring. But I was listening to an interview done by Mark Shapiro, who runs TKO, and he said that stuff was coming, and he pointed his finger at UFC. He's like, there's things that we've done with UFC as far as marketing and sponsorships that you will see in WWE, and this is one of them, which is this center ring logo. I don't know exactly how much money Prime Hydration had to pay to get there. It's kind of funny because I'm sure they're not paying Logan Paul a ton of money to wrestle for them, once a month. But it was just a fascinating thing. If you're into the business and the marketing of this stuff, your first center logo is from Logan Paul's drink company. I thought that was wild.
Yeah. Yeah, Woo Energy's next.
Well, I was telling somebody, I was like, this is the difference. Like, you can tell the difference between WWE and AEW just based on their drink sponsors. One of them is old Ric Flair, who's the history of wrestling cannot be told without him having a giant piece of it. And on WWE, it's like the new guy, the it guy, Logan Paul. It's just a fascinating, thing to kind of look at when you're comparing the companies.
Yeah. I mean, a very smart move. They should have done this a while ago. They should have capitalized on advertising on the canvas. The move to Netflix is probably helping with this also, because we don't know what those numbers are going to look like. We don't know what the ad revenue, the basic number of entry is for an ad on that show. So they're trying to make money everywhere. It's not, they're leaving linear television, and you have to come up with unique marketing and ad revenue ideas, and this is one of them. Now, is it a bad idea? No. Is having that stupid bottle in the middle of the ring ugly? Yeah, it's ugly, and they could do something else, but this is just the beginning. I can't wait till WrestleMania has a Snickers bar right in the middle of the ring.
It's going to be a Prime Hydration
It's going to be Prime, yeah. At least for this year, yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of this.
I love the memes of like all the old historical wrestling moments with the Prime logo. Those are awesome.
Hogan and Sheik, January 30th, 1984. There's a big giant sponsorship in the middle of the ring.
But I mean, think about that though, right? Because the next WWE 2K video game, they'll probably want to put that. And then Logan Paul, I don't know what Logan Paul's agreement is, as far maybe what agreement he signed gives him the rights to do that in the video game already, or maybe he has to sign that agreement with 2K. I don't know exactly how the stuff works, but it's just his ability to come from where he came from and just be as sharp with this stuff. And I'm sure he's got partners and he's got business people. He's not just, freewheeling this thing, but I find him to be fascinating. I know a lot of people don't like him. He's done some questionable,
Logan?
Yeah, he's done questionable things in the past. His behavior as a YouTube
Listen, he was a dopey kid, right? Dopey kid. If we had a camera on us and millions of dollars, we all probably would have said and done something really stupid. I don't know them. I don't watch their content. I have no, it doesn't appeal to me, but look at the success. forget about the financial success. Look at the success as far as how they market themselves. Both of them, both the Paul.
Yep.
And listen, Jake Paul facing Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson on Netflix.
I turned to Jess the other night. I was like, my 40th is in May. I kind of want to see Mike Tyson do one more effing knockout in my life. I've never seen it live, never seen Tyson fight. Why not go to Dallas and see it? That stadium is going to be huge.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the tickets are going to be too expensive.
Well, I'm sure the late, I don't know how many people are going to be in there. I think, I want to say Manny Pacquiao fought a couple of times in that stadium. And I think they got to like 40,000 or so.
40,000?
I think. Maybe
You think
more.
they could do 50? You think they could do 50,000, 60,000 in that stadium for Tyson? Tyson's last fight?
Tyson's going to have to sell it. I don't know how you can do that just with Jake Paul selling it.
No, Tyson's going to have to sell it. He's going
to have to go on all the shows.
What's selling it? Have you seen his training videos? Holy moly. That guy was a monster. I've never seen someone that fast. That size, that fast as a heavyweight, unbelievable.
He's, there was a crossover that he had in the late 80s that almost nobody had.
Yeah.
And he got old and he lost and all that. So, but now it's just to see him kind of rebuild himself and after all of these years, and he's kind of got a little bit of that. It's almost not that people forgot that he lost to Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis and these guys, but he, for whatever reason, he was able to keep himself out there in the spotlight as a celebrity way longer than those guys were. So, what else would you do? Like if someone was like, "Hey, Andrew, we want you to come work for TKO, and we have a marketing department, and we want to figure out how to make more money on these little sponsorships, and what products should we be working with? How do we attract like what else do you think that they should be doing that they're not currently doing today?"
One thing that we brought up on this show was if they were going to Amazon and the very unique opportunity they would have had with Amazon for live injectable ads that you could purchase.
Right.
And I almost feel like somebody's about to do this, and it's going to become the thing. Just like how whenever the news started talking about Twitter and everybody started talking about Twitter, tweet us. This is going to be the next big thing. They did the split screen, and I think that was a marketing changeover, doing that split screen with ads. It was a very unique way to capture the audience so they don't change the channel and they don't get up and leave because they're still watching. And there will be some portion of retention there. I think if you're talking about merchandise and capitalizing on that, they're going to have to figure out a way for you to just do one of these and to buy that John Cena shirt. John Cena comes out, right? He comes out. And it says, do you want to purchase it? And you say, yes. What size? You select it. Boom. You're done in 10 seconds.
Wait, Cena wears clothes now?
Well, I don't know. You know what? That Prime logo would have been great for him to prevent you for that block. They could have used the Prime logo there. I got some great messages about that when it was happening. I didn't watch it, but I got so many great messages about it. I think that's something that they could. I mean, AEW could do so much more with marketing. I could tell you, a laundry list of opportunities they're missing on. But I think WWE, having this TKO UFC kind of new way of thinking, they don't think like a professional wrestling company at all anymore. That's gone, and they're an entertainment company. I went to the circus, dude, on Sunday. I went to the Big Apple Circus at UBS. My kids loved it. And you're looking at this, you're like, it's the same thing. Stage show, 90 minutes, and you go out, and they're selling you a bunch of crap outside. That's where they make their money. There's no difference. It's just a different avenue for it. I don't know. I think TKO's, they're going to have some pretty unique opportunities here, and the crossover between UFC and WWE is going to kind of change some stuff. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think they're missing as far as, marketing and branding and products? I think they're pretty solid. If they put a gun to my head and they said, come up with an idea, that's the only thing I would have right now for them.
I think the relationship with Fanatics is one that I don't quite yet feel the absolute synergy with. There's the collectibles, there's the trading cards that I know it's a little bit of a smaller part of their business, but Fanatics now has their trading cards license. I would just like to see more of those products on, whether it's in commercials or just to remind people like, oh yeah, you can go here and buy this now. Not that they need help with making money, like they're making money hand over fist, but the Netflix thing, I'm gonna, that's the kind of that's the thing where I'm gonna keep my eye on, because I really love that business of the streaming industry, and we are at the sort of the beginning stages of that business, and if other people can be like Netflix, but like, they have the Netflix, the Jake Paul and Tyson fight, which they are doing, which we have talked about. I know that they have their feet in the pool about like an NBA show, maybe based on the in-season tournament. They actually, you know what? They just got rid of. I don't know if do you watch any of their sports programming on Netflix, like the golf show Full Swing?
No, I haven't watched any of it. No.
So Drive to Survive was pretty pioneering in the field, because it really helped that F1 business. Full Swing is good. I'm just not as big of a golf fan as I used to be. So I didn't even really get past the first couple episodes, but it's well done. And I know season 2 just recently came out, but they had a tennis one as well, and they kind of just canceled it. They were just like, oh, by the way, they do a show with the NFL on quarterback. So that whole thing is going to be fascinating to me, because I really watched that Netflix stuff. Not the program, but I watched the business aspect of streaming pretty closely. So WWE Netflix that's the one where I'm just going to be like, man, I have no idea. I'm sure I have some thoughts on how it can improve business, but I'm sure there's going to be things that they figure out that I'm not even thinking of right now. So I'm
well, they did that Netflix Slam, right? Did you see that? The tennis match?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't see this. And this is something that nobody really brought it up to me before. I'm going to try to log into Netflix here and see if I see it. My producer, MG, he said, did you know that this was in 4K? And I thought, no, I didn't know it was in 4K, but they aired it in 4K. And I'm curious now, and nobody's brought this up. Will Raw go to 4K now that it's streaming?
That's interesting. Now I'm not smart enough about the 4K to know what's like true 4K and what's like scaled up and what's scaled down, blah, blah, blah. But the Super Bowl this year, my Hulu Live, or Hulu with live sports, that the picture's fine, but it's not in 4K.
No. Hulu does 1080 or 720. Yeah.
So I was on Paramount Plus, and I took their CBS feed, which was supposed to be in 4K. So we actually watched the 4K feed, which I did not have that normal 30-second delay that I have on Hulu. Like, it was like real time. And so the picture was great, and it was in real time. And I was like, man, I know that Fox does that, but Fox doesn't have an actual streaming app. You have to actually just go to their app and watch live, and you can see some of their sports in 4K, not SmackDown. So there's more stuff like that. You just kind of got to dig through and find it. They don't really broadcast it very well, I don't think. Maybe they don't think that the audience is really there yet for it with the 4K televisions or whatever. But yeah, like I'm now, I'm like, man, I'm going to go, instead of watching everything through Hulu, I'm just going to go find it where I can on all the 20 streaming services that I have, or just go into the Fox app on my Apple TV and watching like the baseball game or something. So yeah. They're doing good stuff, but it's like not very, they're not advertising it very well, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the end of this thing. I think people are kind of wondering, like, are they going to talk about the information that came out from Tim Marchman and John Pollock and Brandon Thurston, and the naming of the people from the lawsuit. I think most people figured that as close to Nick to WWE as Nick Khan is, that he was going to be one of them. I'm sure people had wondered if Stephanie was going to be one of them. People definitely thought Triple H was going to be one of them, and he wasn't. But that information came out. I don't think there's really too much there that we learned outside of the people. Like, there's nothing else that came out about the lawsuit that we don't know. But the Brock Lesnar to the roster pages is kind of interesting. And I did wonder that if not that Brock was coming, more so that maybe they just want him in their good graces because of, what could happen with more information coming out. I thought it maybe was more strategic than just, oh, the smoke is cleared and we can bring Brock back and, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think, they obviously are in the know here. And they're actively defending themselves and they're getting information. And I'm sure that there's something, there's more that they know than we do. So I don't know if they know something about Brock that we don't know yet. I've been pretty. I the way that I've discussed this is I'm just going based on facts, and the facts are pretty wild. They're heinous based on what was in that complaint in the filing. I'm very curious what else comes out, because we have not heard Vince's side. We haven't heard a real defense from John Laurinaitis. And again, this is no defense of either one of those people. I'm very curious on what their explanation for such a, essentially it's sexual abuse by everybody involved. Not Janelle Grant, obviously, but Vince and whoever else was partaking in whatever they were doing. It's such a bonkers story. And if you read that complaint and you read that legal filing, it almost sounds too insane until you see the messages and you're like, oh no, that's Vince. That's how he types. That's how he sends messages. It's crazy that's an old man writing that, right? Mm-hmm. That's an old man. That's not a 25-year-old kid. That's not a 40-year-old degenerate. That is a 70-something-year-old man that is, just the most insane fantasies. So I don't know how this is going to play out.
I sense from some of the fan base and mostly the anti-WWE fan base that they want information about other people to come out so that they can say, see, I told you so. I told you that this person was involved. I'm like the other way. I hope it is only Vince, because
me too.
Then that means that nobody else knew about this and hid anything and tried to do this. I mean, more than likely, if I was to bet, he's not going to be the only person. We know that Brock is in these texts as well. But there's definitely a segment of the population who just want all these. I hope Triple H is involved. I'm like, no, I hope he's not. Like, do you like, as you're covering, not that we're covering it, and I'm thankful that Marchman and Thurston and John Pollock and we have Dave on this stuff too. I'm so happy that these people are covering it because they're smart people. And this, this information in today's day and age can kind of go away. And then you're like, oh, like what happened to that story? It's like, well, these other stories popped up. But we have some really smart people covering this, so I'm very thankful for them. But as we do a show like this, and as we talk about it, like, how hard is it for you when you're watching Raw and you're kind of getting excited for WrestleMania and you see Dwayne on SmackDown, you see him at the Oscars? Are you able to enjoy it like normal, or is there a hesitation because of all the stuff that we know about this lawsuit?
I don't know. Let me ask you this, okay? Let me ask you this. When you read it, right? When you read this lawsuit, because I'm assuming you read the whole thing. I don't know.
I read most of it. And the reason I didn't finish it is because I was like trying to read up to do a show with Dave, and then I did the show, and then I probably had like 20 pages left.
What was your initial thing when you read it? What was like that first thought that came to mind? Did you think reading it that it would develop into what it was? Like the whole story just kind of continues on and it gets worse and more, deranged? Or did you like I'm curious about it because when I read it, I read it on an airplane, so I had all the time in the world, and it just kept getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I was waiting for something in between to kind of be like, oh, okay, maybe this is a little sensationalized, which it's quite possibly it is. That's what these filings are, right? You take a bad situation and you make it sound as bad as possible to kind of guide whatever you're trying to do. Not a knock, again, and this is all legitimate stuff that happened. Did you feel when you read this as, oh no, this whole company's going down, or did you feel like it was more targeted towards Vince?
My initial instinct was Vince is a deplorable human and he deserves to be locked up in jail. That was my first instinct.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, there is a question about what people knew, but I don't think we could actually answer any of that stuff from,
because that's all I was thinking.
lawsuit. Yeah.
Right? Like the story of Vince going around and showing these photos and texting this one and texting that one. It wasn't done in silence. It was done in a very vocal way, to the point that he brought her to the office and did what he did in the office. So I reading it, I just kept thinking, okay, this is too big for it only to be known by 2 or 3 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or 4 people, or 5 people, or 6 people. This is too big because it went on for 3 years. It didn't go on. It wasn't an overnight thing. This continued from 2019 to what, March of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm reading it, I'm thinking, how are they going to explain? Because it's going to come out, everybody that knew and everybody that had heard, and how nobody acted. Not an HR department, not a VP. The board reacted when it went public. That's the only time they reacted to this, when the Wall Street Journal got it. Whether or not it was somebody leaking it or their one side leaking it, I don't know. But the reaction to something like this, when you have a scenario like this and people know, generally it's, yeah, everybody knew and nobody said a word. And if that's the case, that is crazy to me. That in a company
here's
that
the
talks
difference.
about all this stuff, like the bullying and the women's revolution and equality, they are very adamant with saying these things publicly.
Here's the
and yet,
difference.
This is what happened.
And this is why I don't think we know exactly, is because did people know about Vince's affairs and extramarital affairs and cheating on Linda? Like, probably for the last 30 or 40 years, like that stuff seemed to be very public.
Since 1991, that Playboy article.
There's a different level to what he is accused of doing to Janelle Grant than office gossip about your CEO and president having affairs with younger women. Like, that is a different level. And I think sometimes people try to equate that as one and the same. Like, well, if he was doing this, then he was doing that. And I don't, because I've seen the dynamic in an office before. I would, and maybe this is me just giving humans the benefit of the doubt, I can't imagine that he was telling all of these people all of these things that he was doing and they would have just stayed put. Now, that may be the power thing that he used with Janelle Grant, and he uses that with everybody. That could be, but I just don't imagine somebody's job, of making $100,000 or whatever. Some of them, the other people obviously making a lot, is like just worth like, oh yeah, like I knew this thing was going on and I didn't say anything because I couldn't find another job from a company that just fires people a lot anyway. So that's the part that's hard for me, but we have to wait for more information. That's why I said that. That's why I'm so thankful of Tim and Brandon and Pollock and Dave, because they're not allowing this story to just go by the wayside. Like, they're continuing.
No, and it shouldn't. So. It shouldn't go by the wayside. Yeah, I mean, we've seen so many shoot interviews out there, right? Where they bury Vince. They talk about what a heinous person he is. And those people, they didn't know. Like Bret Hart came out. I mean, Bret's was pretty, he was very vocal about what a heinous thing this was, and rightfully so. But, he was shocked when he heard this stuff, to the extent of what it is. And I think that's a lot of people. That in that complaint, it was, they're talking about how Vince was showing it to everybody and was talking about this and was so vocal about it. But somebody is going to spill the beans if you keep talking. So yeah. I'm wondering, and I'm not denying, I'm not saying that, she's making it up. I'm saying somebody will come forward if this is the case, and they're going to have to.
I hope they have that person lined up. Like if, this goes there's going to be a trial here, you have those people lined up and go, I mean, they have Vince's phone, right? That could, if Vince is texting these photos to other numbers, then they would know.
And remember, Vince is the one that stopped the payment on the NDAs.
Yeah.
And that has led to this. So it's all uncomfortably fascinating to read and to kind of try to comprehend, because it's so gross, on all accounts as a human being, and the acts of what he, even if it's consensual, okay? I know we're a little over, and I haven't had an opportunity to talk. Even if this is consensual to some extent, it's still deplorable. It's still deplorable behavior. Listen, and I'm not a prude. I think what adults do is up to them, and I don't get in the way. I don't judge, but you read some of those things, and you're like, what is, even on the simplest of, it was consensual. In a weird world, let's say it's still, you could tell that this man, I don't know. I don't even know what I would call him.
Do you remember Beyond the Mat when Jake Roberts was talking about the addictions that he had from being on the road?
Yes. And dude, that line has stuck with me forever, because his eyes told a story of you're on the road and you meet a fan and you go out to dinner and you sleep with her. The next time you don't go out to dinner, you just sleep with her, and then you go to another town and there's someone that doesn't even care. They just show up at your house or your apartment, and 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 4. And now you're doing all this behavior that you've never done in your life.
And he basically said it was, he couldn't just like be with his wife anymore. Like
he couldn't do it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, that's the kind of grisly stuff that, we would always hear about story wise about wrestling. Like, you'd hear these grisly stories about that kind of stuff and the road. And, like back then they would call them ring rats, I don't know what, groupies, whatever you want to call the women who were just out there to, be with their celebrity or whatever. And so that, we've known about that stuff, but this is like something that I don't think I could have imagined. And so when I read it, it was like, oh, this is kind of not real. Like your brain kind of does that a little bit. You're like, this doesn't seem real. And then you realize, like, this is the report. This is the accusation. This is a woman's story about what happened to her. And then it just becomes like ill. Like you just feel sick. So
78 years old, this man, by the way. 78 years old. He started the relationship 3 years ago. 5 years ago now. So he was still in his 70s when this happened.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Well, it's
wild.
We're going to keep talking about it because it's going to be out there. The reporting, maybe there's going to be more pieces from Wall Street Journal. But yeah, and this is not stuff that we normally like talking about, but I think it's important, and we need to also keep the story out there for folks just to remember. Like, it's just not about WrestleMania in The Rock. It is about some of these other things. So,
Yeah.
alrighty.
Absolutely.
All right. So Andrew and I will be back next week. We're on that road to WrestleMania, so we'll have a lot more news. We didn't even really talk about the stuff that happened on Raw. We probably should have at least talked about that.
Cody was crying.
Yeah, well, that was a great promo. But the Maxine and Candice LeRae thing was like maybe the worst thing that Triple H has booked since he's taken over.
I said this last week, and I'll say it. Some of those like remnants of Vince still exist.
that was that
Diarrhea Dwayne.
Vince. Yeah.
Diarrhea Dwayne, the hyper bullying. I would joke about it all the time and say that the women's division for a very long time was just mean girls. Mm-hmm. Just everybody was mean. Even the baby faces were just total assholes. And, some of that still exists. And we saw that with that terrible angle.
Yes, it was really bad. Hopefully they just like forget about it and they hear that people just thought it was stupid. So, all right. Thank you, Andrew, for doing this. Thanks to producer John. So for Andrew, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.